AI isn't coming to your organization. It's already there. And in most cases, it didn't start with a strategy. It started quietly, and now it's spreading. Welcome to the AI Beginner Podcast, where we take a calm, practical approach to understanding and applying AI in the real world. I'm Steve, and if you're responsible for workflows, teams, or outcomes, this is where AI starts to make sense. No hype, no pressure, just a clearer way to move forward.
Listen to questions.
This week's question comes from Luke. Luke writes, "We've started using AI tools across the team, but it feels a bit messy and honestly a little ugly. It feels like things are getting a bit out of control. Different people are using different tools, and I'm not sure we're doing this the right way. What should I be doing to keep this from going off the rails?" Luke, this is a really good question. And more importantly, it's a very common situation right now. We've talked about similar topics before on the show, but it's really becoming a big deal lately. What you're describing isn't unusual. In fact, it's exactly how AI is being introduced in most organizations today. AI adoption rarely starts with a formal plan. It starts informally. Someone tries ChatGPT. Someone else automates part of a workflow. A team experiments with a new tool. And over time, this starts to spread. But here's the problem. It spreads without structure. Different teams use different tools. There's no shared understanding of what good looks like, and no one really owns it. On the surface, this can feel like progress. People are using AI. Work is getting done faster in some cases. There's energy around it. But underneath that, there's very little consistency. And that's where things start to break down. You start to see inconsistent outputs. People making different decisions about how to use AI. No clear guardrails. No defined ownership. And from a leadership perspective, this becomes very difficult to manage. Because AI is being used, but you can't clearly explain how or where the risks are. The real challenge isn't AI. It's how AI is being introduced. Most organizations don't have a rollout strategy. They have scattered experimentation. A better approach doesn't start with tools. It starts with structure. First, understand your baseline. Where are you today? What's actually happening? Then, introduce a controlled pilot. Not everywhere, just one workflow. Then, measure what improves before deciding what should scale. That's how capability is built. This is exactly why I created the AI Capability Rollout Framework. It's not about tools. It's about giving organizations a structured way to move from experimentation to something more deliberate. Guardrails first, then a controlled pilot, then measurement and responsible expansion. Nothing flashy, just a practical system that works in real environments. So Luke, let's actually answer your question directly. If things feel messy and a bit ugly, you're not wrong. That's exactly what happens when AI starts spreading without structure. Here are 4 steps you might want to consider. Step 1, get visibility. The first thing I would do is not try to fix everything. It's simply to get visibility. Where is AI actually being used today? Who is using it? And for what types of tasks? Not in a formal audit, just a simple understanding. Because right now, you can't manage what you can't see. Step 2, define basic guardrails. The second step is to introduce some very simple guardrails. Not complex policies, not long documents, just clarity. What's okay to use AI for? What's not okay? What kind of data should never be entered into these tools? Even a small amount of clarity here can reduce a lot of risk very quickly. Step 3, assign ownership. And this is one most organizations skip. Who is actually responsible for how AI is being used? Not at a company level, but at a practical level. Someone needs to be able to say, this is how we're approaching this. Without that, everything stays informal. And then the fourth step is to resist the urge. to scale everything at once. Instead, choose one workflow, something low risk, but meaningful enough to learn from, and treat that as a control pilot. Define what success looks like. Measure what improves. That give you something real to build from. If you do just those four things, visibility, guardrails, ownership, and a control pilot, you move from "this is ugly" to "this is starting to make sense." And that's really the shift. Not more tools, just a more structured way to introduce AI. And this is where this starts to matter a bit more than it might seem on the surface. Because what Luke is experiencing right now isn't just a messy phase. It's actually the very early stage of how AI shows up inside most organizations. And I want to pause on that for a second. Because if this feels a little chaotic, a little inconsistent, a little unclear, that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It actually means something important is already happening. It means people are trying. It means your team sees value. It means AI is already making its way into real work, not just conversations about it. And honestly, that's a really good place to be, because a lot of organizations aren't even there yet. They're still stuck in meetings, still evaluating tools, still talking about someday. Meanwhile, your team is already in motion. And yes, it might feel a bit messy right now, but that mess is actually the signal. It's showing you where the opportunity is. Because here's what typically happens next if nothing changes. Different people start solving the same problem in completely different ways. One person finds something that works really well, but no one else knows about it. Another person tries something once, gets a bad result, and quietly stops using AI altogether. Some teams move fast, others avoid it completely. And over time, you don't just get inconsistency in tools. You get inconsistency in how work gets done. And that's where things start to feel frustrating. Not because AI isn't useful, but because it's unpredictable. But here's the good news. And this is the part that most people miss. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need a full strategy. You don't need a big rollout plan. You don't need to standardize every tool overnight. You just need to bring a little bit of clarity to what's already happening. That's it. Because once you do that, even in a small way, things start to settle. You start to get visibility. You can actually see where AI is being used, what people are using it for, and where it's helping. You introduce simple guardrails, not to restrict people, but to give them confidence. What's okay to use? What to be careful with? Where AI fits and where it doesn't. You create ownership. So it's not just everyone trying things. There's a little bit of accountability, a little bit of direction. And then, when you run even one small, controlled pilot, everything changes. Because now you're not guessing anymore. You're learning. You can point to something and say, this worked, this didn't, this saved time, this didn't really help. And suddenly, AI stops feeling like this unpredictable thing happening in the background and starts to feel like something you can actually understand. Once you can understand it, you can improve it. And once you can improve it, you can rely on it. This is the part that I really want to leave you with. You're actually closer than you think. That ugly feeling? That's not a sign that things are off the rails. It's a sign that you're right at the point where structure starts to matter. And this is where a lot of organizations either pull back, get overwhelmed, or try to force control too quickly. But there's a better path. You keep the momentum, but you add just enough structure to make it consistent, not rigid, not complicated, just clear. And that's a really good place to be. If you want to take a step back and understand where your organization stands right now, the best place to start is the AI Readiness Score. It gives you a quick baseline and helps you identify what's missing. You can take it in just a few minutes at aibeginner.net/start.
AI hot tip.
Here's a quick AI hot tip. If you're feeling pressure to roll out AI quickly, slow it down. Start with one workflow. Get that right. Then expand.
Optimistic AI thought of the week.
Here's this week's optimistic AI thought of the week. The organizations that approach this with structure are the ones that will move forward with confidence. And more importantly, they'll avoid a lot of unnecessary risk along the way. If you'd like more practical resources for navigating AI in the workplace, you can find guides, tools, and the readiness assessment at aibeginner.net/start. And if you found this episode helpful, consider sharing it with a colleague who's trying to figure out how AI fits into their organization. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Schnitzel beats and circuit dreams. Welcome to the show of machines. Grab your bites and join the scene. AI beginner, let's turn the screen. AI beginner, pros to you. Hey! AI beginner, let's compute.